anyone else in that room know what's scary is when you hear the audio, there are a lot of people going, So it feels like a class needs to be taught to everyone.
No, you need a class.
What I find ironic is that, so these white women are supposed to be telling black people how to think and not listen to a black man just on the skin color, because they always go to the skin color, right?
Within one generation after the welfare state, that had dropped down to a minority. So that the majority of black kids today are raised in one-parent households. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, I mean, centuries of slavery and generations of Jim Crow did not destroy the black family, but one generation of the welfare state did.
Yep.
So all over media within the last couple of days, the left has been going after Congressman Byron Donalds. And of course, the left has twisted his comments and taken them all the way out of context. But we are going to be here to set it straight.
Congressman Byron Donalds hit a new low when he told a room full of black Republicans that he misses the quote unquote good old days.
Wanted to be a father to my son. Wow. And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of black families with younger black men and black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. That's right. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then H.E.W., Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. Well, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right.
It's hard to hear him a little bit, I think. But he's basically saying that during the Jim Crow period, which is post-slavery, like 100 years later, black people were in better condition than they are now, right?
When there were slave patrols and things like that. Well, you know, listen, I can't say it any better than our House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries. So let's take a look at what he said.
We were not better off when a young boy named Emmett Till could be brutally murdered without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when black women could be sexually assaulted without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off.
Does he not know the history,
So
or is
creative.
he just wanting to pander?
Well,
What's
either
going
did
on?
anyone else in that room know what's scary is when you hear the audio, there are a lot of people going, So it feels like a class needs to be taught to everyone.
No,
in that
you
room,
need a
because
class.
Segregation left you with no choice. Like, you weren't picking the family. They were literally making you go to different places. They didn't allow for, so talking about a black person choosing to be with your family and then looking at the greater social scheme and the injustice of that, he must not know what it is. I mean,
all right, I can't take it anymore. I can't take to even hear them anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go first, Shelly. This what are your thoughts on what he said and then their response?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. First of all, what I find ironic is that, so these white women are supposed to be telling black people how to think and not listen to a black man just on the skin color, because they always go to the skin color, right? Just on the surface level. That's number one. Number two, Hakeem Jeffries, I would like to ask him, so are black women safer today than they were under Jim Crow? Because back then you're saying it was the white man that was lynching and killing. Okay, well, guess who's killing each other now? Black people. We're not under Jim Crow. We're in full freedom, if you will, and yet we're still, doing each other much harm. They are full of it. They will use every trick in the book. Not to mention that Byron Donalds did not say or was not implying that Jim Crow was this panacea for black people. That's the same thing they tried to do with Governor DeSantis in Florida. This is what they do.
Right, exactly. You could understand clearly He was talking about the era, the time period. Jim Crow occurred from 1877 to 1964. And he was talking about the idea that during that time period, Black families appeared, it appears that that time period following slavery and Jim Crow were not as harmful to the Black community, to Black family, as the legacy of liberalism and the welfare state. That is what he was saying. He was saying that era, although we were under Jim Crow, although Jim Crow was horrible, awful, slavery was awful, he was saying, but still, we overcame it, and the numbers don't lie. You want to talk, instead of all of us talking about, you know, what he said and this and that, and you hear the lady on The View saying he's not educated, da, 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 da. Well, let's talk about the actual numbers. Take a look here. This is economist Thomas Sowell. He has been pushing this for a very long time. He has delved into the era, this era, and how it compares for how Black community, the Black people fared then and now. And he breaks it down very well. Take a look here.
When they talk about things like this, they talk about the legacy of slavery. Right. And I argue, well, empirically, it's not that, it's the legacy of the welfare state. Because as of 1960, which is almost 100 years after slavery ended, the majority of Black kids were being raised in two-parent households. But within one generation after the welfare state, that had dropped down to a minority. So that the majority of Black kids today are raised in one-parent households. When you think about it, I mean, centuries of slavery and generations of Jim Crow did not destroy the Black family, but one generation of the welfare state did.
That's what I wanted to talk about. This is what he was saying. He was talking about the Black family in that era versus how we are now. And they
don't want to do that.
No,
they don't want, they want to make what Byron Donalds said. They want to use that one little clip, if you will, and make that the issue, because to do otherwise means that they would have to face themselves and their policies, right? So they don't want to do that. That's number one. And the Black family, like Mr. Sowell has said, our Black families are in one generation have been destroyed. We know that economically, two parents raising their children, that child or those children have a higher rate and degree of success, even in a single family home, even with more income for the most part, economically on average. So we know that. So it's an economic factor for Black women, Black children, white children, whatever. Two parents are the game changer.
Absolutely. And what he was saying, along with Dr. Sowell, is those years were marked by Blacks acting without government assistance. Hundreds of thousands of Southern Blacks migrated to the North, where they found jobs and better schools. The family units were intact. And the numbers, when you look at it as far as economically within that period after Jim Crow, we fared much better. The poverty rate among Blacks fell from 87% in 1940 to 47% by 1960. This was before any of those programs, the welfare state, began. This is what he was saying, but Democrats don't want to talk about it because then it sheds a light on how their idea, their system of keeping us on the government tit, as you say, Shelley, does not work.
It doesn't work. And again, you can take a child with two parents even in an impoverished area. That child will likely do better than a single parent in that same situation. So they like to harp on this that you know the errors. They think that they're the only ones that can speak on Jim Crow. And what do? They only focus on the slavery. And yes, it was horrible. Yes, the segregation by government fiat was horrible and wrong. That's not what we're saying. He was comparing the Black families. Tell me today, how is the Black family faring outside of Jim Crow? How is it faring? You all, I know Black people. I'm a Black person. We know many. We know that when 70% of our children are born to single mothers, no fathers in the home. Look at our crime. Under Jim Crow, you didn't find this much crime in the Black community. How no?
No, and he talks about it. Take a look here. He goes into it a little bit more deeply on this clip here.
Children were being raised in two-parent families in 1960. 30 years after the liberal welfare state, the great majority of Black children were being raised by single parents.
Yes.
How does that, by the way, we should note that Patrick Moynihan publishes the Moynihan Report in 1965.
Yes.
And he's alarmed because the illegitimacy rate among Black families is 25% then. Now, among whites, it's over a third.
Yes.
Hispanics, it's over half. And among African Americans, it's over 70%. What's going on there?
Tell them.
Well, this is, again, this too, you find the same thing in Britain. You find it in France and Norway. You find it in the Western world. In fact,
The dissolution of the family structure.
oh yeah, there are any number of Western nations where 40% of the children are raised with only one parent.
Right.
At the extremes, compared to Asian countries, at the extremes, Iceland, it's 2 out of 3 children born are raised in a single parent home. In South Korea, it's 1 out of 66.
Wow. And so that's the welfare state?
Yes.
It is.
Oh, you're paying. You're creating a situation where if the first of all, you're creating a situation where if the man stays there, the government will not give the woman welfare.
Right.
And if he leaves, it will. And so they're paying. When you pay people not to get married, more people don't get married.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he talks about in his writings and in his TV appearances how this was detrimental to our community. Crime increased, educational and literacy decreased. All of this stuff when we started depending on the government versus ourselves and our families. Our community suffered for it. He goes into detail in one interview how he's talking about how he lived in Harlem. He grew up in Harlem. And prior to this whole welfare state, during the summertime, they did not have air conditioning in many of the homes. People were out on the lawn, used to sleep on the lawns. They would sleep on their balconies. No one was scared of being, assaulted or any type of criminal activity because there was none.
Exactly. If you remember nothing else, one concept you should take away, conclusion is that whatever the government pays for or supports or puts money behind, you will get more of it. That's period. And 99.99% of the time, the government is paying for with your taxpayer money, my taxpayer money, most of the things that we would not pay for if we had to write the check ourselves.
Absolutely. But again, the Democrats do not want to talk about this. So when you have someone like Byron Donalds who talks about this, he says, hey, of course, Jim Crow was bad. Slavery was bad. But after that and before the welfare state, we as a community, as a people, were better people. We were better people because we were not dependent on someone else. Nope. And that's what he was talking about, but they don't want to talk about because they know that this would then say that their policies, their ideology is not good for our community.
It's not.
That's what it is.
It really is. I remember a time, again, I knew people who were on welfare or who had some supplementation to their income, food stamps. I remember the paper food stamp, the actual book, right? But as many people who had those, or I would say the few people who had those for however time, it was not a lifetime, a lifetime subsidizing, number one. Number two, as a community, that was shunned because the idea was that you need to get a job and work as soon as you can. You might need food stamps temporarily, or you might need some assistance temporarily, but in no way, shape, or form should you be on it for life as a way of life.
Absolutely. And he talks about the decline here in this clip. Take a look here.
Quote, the poverty rate among Black married couples has been less than 10% every year since 1994. As far back as 1969, young Black males whose homes included newspapers, magazines, and library cards had similar incomes to those of their white counterparts.
Wow.
Academic outcomes show a pattern of disparities similar to the pattern of disparities in the amount of time devoted to schoolwork. Apparently, lifestyle choices have consequences.
Absolutely.
Close quote.
Exactly.
So this is the constrained vision once again. Welfare state, that's government. We don't rely on that. Affirmative action, government. We don't rely on that. We rely on hard work. We rely on the institution of marriage. That's correct?
Yes, in other words, these things, I don't think it's the marriage as such or the library cards as such. It's that there are lifestyle choices that have been made. And the comparison I made was between, if you look at the poverty rate among Blacks, it was 22%, and among whites it was 11%. But among Black married couples, it was 7.5%.
Right.
Wow.
So it's not so they not only do better than Blacks as a whole, they do better than whites as a whole. And so it's lifestyle choices. Similarly,
Right.
with the results and some of these more successful charter schools, that you have these kids not only meeting but exceeding the national standards.
Yeah. And so he goes on to provide examples of this, but this is all things Democrats do not support. They don't support charter schools. You know, they do not support that. And as we know, and the data shows, these things have done exponentially better for Black communities. But they want to keep us in government schools.
Exactly. They don't support anything that will indicate what's the word I want to say? Independent thinking or critical thinking. They don't support anything that will be conducive to those means and measures, particularly for Black people, because they still want Black people on the government hits.
Right. And that includes keeping Black men out of the homes.
Exactly.
And that is what happened when they instituted the welfare system. And so Byron Donalds was again saying that, you know, during that time period, families were whole, traditional style families, you know, men were in the homes and things like that. And, you know, as the years progressed, you know, we were better for it. That's what he was saying. And another thing I want to touch on that they kind of keep tiptoeing around, this was mentioned in the interview he did with Joy Reid. I don't have that clip, but he did an interview with Joy Reid, and she kind of slammed him for these Jim Crow comments as well. But the one thing they continue to point out is he's married to a white woman. So Byron Donalds is married. He's in an interracial marriage. He's married to a white woman. And they continue to pick at this. And what is so crazy about it is they're supposed to be, you know, they always, right. And they always talk about Black this, Black that, Black this, Black that. And you know what I'm saying? They're trying to pick that he's married to a white woman. Because they know, I guess they're trying to say the Black community looks at him and not Black.
Well, that's what they're saying too. And they're mocking him in a way. Right. They are, you know, first of all, I thought spouses, particularly if they were not in politics, they were supposed to be off limits, right? Mm-hmm. But they put that in there in a little, you know, like a jab. They just want to, you know, taunt him. Al Sharpton, Joy Reid, I think I saw another interview, but they bring it up. And I thought when I first heard Joy Reid, I said, what does his wife have to do with any of this? But it was a dig. It was a dig. And you're right. They're trying to say, oh, well, you're not really black. You know, you married a white woman. Many of them are married to opposite, spouses, whatever, opposite race spouses. But they did that on purpose, and they just tried to be ever so sneaky about it.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I mean, and they only do it to Black Republicans.
Exactly.
No, they don't do it. Kamala Harris is married to a white man. AOC is dating a white man. One of the squad members, maybe all of them, are dating or married to white men. But again, this is on that side when they constantly, when you look at everything through the lens of race, like they want us to do, they manipulate you or try to manipulate you, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Exactly. It's only good if you're on the right political side. That's it.
Exactly. Right.
That's it.
Right. And quiet as it's kept, most of the left, they're led by these white liberals. This is what they are led by, these white liberals that manipulate them. They are the puppeteers behind all of this. But there's never a racial issue with that. It's only with the Black Republicans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's hypocritical, as they always are. And again, it's this idea of using race. You saw Hillary Clinton, when they're talking to Black people, they it's always a switch up. Where I got hot sauce in my purse.
Southern accent, and I ain't always tired. Yeah. I've come too far from where I started from.
Right. It's ridiculous. and if anything, you would think Black people or the Black community would look at it and feel a certain type of way, because it's very it's insulting, I would say. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think more Black men are seeing it as insulting for what it is. I still think there's a lag behind with most Black women.
Right. Yeah. But it's a manipulation. But you even so, I mean, it's clear that it is. But the Black community continues to be manipulated by it.
Right.
They throw those jabs in on him, but nobody says anything about all of the Democrats who are married to opposite race. Nope. Or in interracial relationships. It's nothing said. Yeah.
Nope.
All right. So that does it for us tonight. Thank you.
Oh my.
Yeah, that does it for us tonight. Just definitely want to comment on those two stories. Any final thoughts for us tonight, Shelly?
Yes. Don't ride with KJ until you know for sure that she's going to bring you back home or to your car.
All right.
No, I don't have my hat. I do have my hat. I left it in my car tonight. But again, put your hats on, America hats, a flag hat, whatever. But again, stand up, speak up, show up, and strap up while you're doing so.
Absolutely. My final thought is to research this stuff, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do not let these leftist pundits and politicians manipulate you, because this is what it all is. I mean, we were talking about Joy Reid and The View. She literally said a couple of weeks ago when they had Bill Maher on that she is afraid to criticize Joe Biden because she's afraid people will then vote for Trump. So she has criticisms of him, but she won't say it because she's afraid that these people are so manipulative.
Very.
And they lie and they misinform and they do this constantly. And I hope people are waking up to this. And
I think they are. And I would tell people, okay, I mean, like you said, research, read for yourself, but at the very least, all this stuff on social media, at the very least, if you're going to watch something on the other side to see how they frame whatever that issue is. At least you'll have, two different, thoughts, if you will, two different paths. And then you can see where one train of thought will lead and where the other one leads. Compare and contrast at the very least.
Exactly. Absolutely. And And we've done that. You know, a lot of these leftists have been leftists all their life, from family members on down. They've all been Democrats. We, on the other hand, have been on both sides.
Absolutely.
We've been Democrat. We were surrounded by Democrat most of the times in our families and friends. And we took the time to research, and now we have a different opinion on these things. So,
Right.
I mean, it says a lot when, you know, most of them have always, they don't have they haven't looked at these other ideologies or researched anything.
No.
They just went around with the same old stuff, doing the same old thing, what people have told them to do. And please continue. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button and subscribe. If you are not subscribed as yet, please subscribe. And again, your super chats are very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Please.